One of the pieces of advice I give in the Solo GM guide is a little counterintuitive if you haven't played solo RPGs before, and that is to begin a session not with character creation, which is typically what is going to come first if you are following really any rule set, but especially a traditional rule set. But instead of doing that, to begin with an environment, to create some type of environment for whatever characters you ultimately will play with to live in. And the reason I suggest that is because it does mimic the procedure by which a GM is going to create some type of setting or decide on a module even before coming to the table, before people sit down and create their characters. The rules have character creation first, typically in the player handbook, but really the GM prep is what happens first. And to establish a setting is to give your characters already something to do, to put them and locate them in a place. So in this video, we're going to look at one way to do that, which is not going to be terribly involved with creating an entire world history and doing tons of world building, but instead going to locate itself in a very particular place, and that is in a castle. And we're going to look at this Engineering Castles supplement here. This is something that you can see the credits here. It's from Troll Lord Games, and I have had this for quite some time. I do not know where it is available online. I'll do a search, and if I can find it currently available online, I'll put the link down below. There is a companion piece to it called Engineering Dungeons that I've done a video on a while ago, and I will try to put the link to that video up here. It is a very similar project, a similar document, but here I'm going to show you how the process of going through engineering a castle can create an environment for you, can spark ideas to give the beginnings of a story into which you will put your characters. And it's possible that in a future video, I will actually take my castle and have some characters playing out a story in it. But for right now, we're going to build a castle. We're going to engineer a castle, and this is described as engineering castles brings the wearied castle keeper the tools to entice the imagination to create wholesale from scratch a varied array of castles and structures. We're probably just going to focus on the one castle, but we'll see as we go through it what we end up with. And there's a lot more narrative and description and explanation in this document than just the tables that we're going to roll on. I'll pick up on some of this and show you some of that, but I'll mostly say to you that it's worth, if you get this document, it's worth actually reading through the explanation of what these things are and what the aspects of the castles are to also help you with beginning to create the beginnings of a story. So the first, these are mostly either D100 or D20 rolls, tables, and the very first one is the purpose of the castle. And it says here, typically, knowing what purpose some particular building serves will help determine other facets about it. So we will start there, and we're just going to follow through here, and I'll walk you through my own thought process as I get these values. And we rolled 53, so that is giving us the purpose. It is military, and it is referring us to table 1B. So I'm going to make my notes, and then we will skip over. We'll go to table 1B, which has to do with objectives. So we've got some sort of military castle. This is a D20 table here. The objectives are going to be training standard. So right away, we have some sense of military and training. So what this tells me in terms of perhaps a direction for a story or for PCs or NPCs is maybe the inhabitants of this castle are going to be younger. We've got trainers, training. It says military. This could be interpreted many different ways. The traditional way, of course, would be like soldiers of some sort. Perhaps it could be if there is a world in which the war is conducted by magic. Perhaps these could be magic characters if you want them to. And that is their objective in this castle for training. Now, then we talk here about guilds. This is going to be some type of guild in the society, and it's also a D20 roll. We have the guild and what the membership actually is, and we rolled another 3. Occupational guild, well, okay, and 19 secret. So we got occupational guild, and it is secret. So putting that together with the concept of a castle with military training, perhaps this castle is a special place where a special type of elite military force, whatever it might be, goes for training. So this is already giving us a little bit more of a direction here, and we will move on. They're describing occupational guilds as those which do not necessitate a skill in making something, but is otherwise considered a trained ability. So it says sometimes bordering on the quasi-legal, and the contents inside these castles will vary greatly. So let us go to, well, we've got an institution table here. So we have a D100 table with the structure, the principle, and the acceptance of this institution. So let's see, 52. The institutional structure is a monastery. Okay, so that, for example, doesn't make a whole lot of sense with my military training. I mean, unless it's like I suppose you could link it as it could be like a secret clerical guild, perhaps, for secret dark magic. We can also, of course, ignore a roll. Let's see. 29, we have the principles of that are going to be war. Okay, so it might be suggesting some type of magical war, and then the acceptance of it is going to be 66. It's going to be tolerated. So that if we're using all of this and not re-rolling, this is leading me in this direction of a kind of secret clerical magical training place that is accepted in the world, and that its goal is to create clerics, I guess, that can wage this war. We got a contents table, and we rolled here a 90, and that is going to say alchemical goods or components. So again, this would be here, if we're thinking this single castle. I realize it's very hard to see this. It's just, you'll have to sort of listen to what I'm saying. The alchemical goods or components is something that is inside this castle. Actually, there's an inventory line. Let's roll on that. We got a 66, which is telling us that there's a fair amount of that. So that this castle is training it's a secret place that is training clerics. Perhaps whatever these alchemical goods are, that is either magic or what is needed for the magic is scarce in the world and needs to be protected. Maybe that's why it's secret. Or perhaps it is being guarded. We got military as the first thing. Perhaps the military part of it is describing not the entire castle per se, but the fact that these alchemical goods are being guarded. So again, you could see maybe some direction possibly for stories already. And we are just, not really very far into these worksheets here. So who built this? Who built this castle? So this is another D100 table, and we'll see 67. You can see, at least I can feel, a character class 2B. All right, it's referring me to a class of characters. You can see, and especially right here, right before this roll, that as we are starting to develop some of this story, that each further roll is going to seem to have more of an impact. At least that's what I'm feeling. Like whoever we rolled a 2 here, barbarians built it. So again, if we are trying to link everything together, that barbarians, how do they fit into this whole business of the magical secret society that needs to protect the magic? Well, I would say that they were hired or perhaps forced into servitude by the clerics, who are going to be the elite class in this sort of magical, mystical, religious world. They were forced to build this castle because that's how it kind of makes sense. So there's a hierarchy already in the world where the clerical magical is the height of the world, and the barbarians were forced to build the castle to protect the fair amount of alchemical goods that are left. Now, there are section here on settlements, like how many there are. I'm not really sure that's relevant here because we're just sticking to the one castle, but I'll roll for terrain, and we got the hills. So this is a castle in the hills. And again, there are descriptions here that may help explain or give further detail to what the implications of terrain like that might be. For the hills, let's see, what does it say? It doesn't really say a whole lot. There's access to some valuable metals, usually less fear from aerial attack. These castles tend to have very thick and sturdy walls, making them formidable opposition for direct attack, but they are at risk to undercutting and any spells that affect stone, such as earthquake. So again, may be useful, may not be useful. There is a section here on mobility. This is, not sure, mobile fortifications that we're not going to bother with. The types of enclosure that it is. Again, we could clear, muddy, opaque is the choice there. Not so much relevant for us. How advanced are we? So let's see how advanced the magic is. Now, again, this is where I already have the beginnings of some type of story about the world. So this is going to impact that. Well, I rolled a D100 and it's a D20, so that won't help. All right, we rolled a 9, and that tells us that we're medium advanced. So the magic level is medium, and the technology level, according to this roll, is more medieval. Rumors in this world, we are rolling for that, and we got a 93. Enchanted. Okay, so there are some enchanted rumors. Now, what does that mean? Well, it could mean many things. Here it says enchanted castle rumors are those which are either negative, such as a beautiful princess trapped in the highest tower unable to escape, or those which have tremendous tales of magic or technology. So again, supporting the concept of something is going on with magic in the world. Is this castle okay? Is the castle okay? And the age of the castle, we have that it is ancient and the condition of it is damaged. So it is an ancient and damaged castle. What does that mean? Well, it means perhaps there's been a threat over time to the magic that is being produced here, and maybe our story that we're going to develop is going to have something to do with that. The style of the castle is going to be 54. Merovingian. Using the simple basilica as a guide, the architecture of the Merovingian dynasty relied on previous works to facilitate construction, taking inspiration from anything around them, and sometimes from very far away, such as Eastern Europe or Middle East. The most important constructions were made of stone. One unique entry into architectural practice, which would be continued into later methods, the use of the reliquary raised to a visible height, sometimes situated on an axis and others within the apse. The importance of this was twofold. First, it brought into focus the humanity of the faith, rather than all aspects considered divine. And secondly, it allowed those who attended an obvious clue and evidence of their faith. So actually, interestingly, we did roll up something that makes sense with like a kind of monastery as we had had a military, well, we've got the military, but the monastery situation. So this is definitely a religious structure, and that it is architecturally significantly devoted to being a religious structure. And we then have, let's see, we have what it could be made out of. Let's roll for what it could be made out of. 34. Lime or sandstone. Okay, that's pretty traditional. And all right, elemental essence. Let's see. Well, no, that's a D20 roll. Elemental essence is going to be smoke, steam, or fog. And let's see, depending on how concentrated it is, this impairs vision, reducing the visible in all forms, except those of magical in nature, ranges by half or greater. So it is, I would say for this, I would take inspiration to say that it is that part of the defense of this is that it is invisible, perhaps, or that it is hard to see, it's hard to find, which is part of the secret nature of what is going on in here. And then there is a role for a type of metal. I don't think we're going to do that. And then there is a type of room. So the final role here is the type of room, and maybe we can get from that 49 the beginning of where we would be: an activity room, training room, hobby room, etc. So that's kind of reinforcing this concept of training. And one of the things I've said and written about is that when you are doing random rolls and you are getting things that are repetitive in different tables, you can take that to mean that is a suggestion of a strong theme. So I think here the message is that the training, the secret nature of the training of the clerics and the magic, the protection of the magic and the magic being under assault is what is going to be important. So if I were doing all of this in preparation for a setting, or for a one shot or a solo RPG, the beginning of a solo RPG, what that would mean to me is that at least one of my main characters would be a cleric, that perhaps there would be the involvement of a student cleric, a lower level cleric, that perhaps I would, if I was putting together a party, I would have a warrior or two because there was that military theme. And if I was doing something like a dungeon crawl, maybe they would be underneath the dungeon of this castle that was either under assault, or they had to go and find and protect, maybe remove some type of magical object that we had the alchemical goods. Maybe they need to go get those alchemical goods and bring them somewhere else. You could go through this castle structure again to roll up another castle. That's another good strategy in creating an environment where if you have one place and then you have another place, you have automatically a place to travel to. And with the construction of the second place, you then have the beginning of a story about, well, why are they going from one place to another? So those are just a few different types of stories that I can automatically see evolving out of this construction of this castle that we just built. And it is enough of a suggestion of an environment of things going on that it is starting the world building for you. And it is starting it in a way that's both localized with the castle, but also the suggestion of a more general world, a world in which the clerical, the monastic, the magical class is the ruler, but they are under assault, and a world in which barbarians a long time ago built this castle and built it for the clerics, where secret training is still going on, but there's a long history of assault. And therefore, the suggestion of protecting these alchemical goods, perhaps moving the alchemical goods to somewhere else that is safe. These are some things that come out of the engineering of just this one castle, this one particular place, into which now you can put some characters and let them enjoy a story.